Design shapes the way you live. I'm Nico, an interior design expert focused on the connection between home and well-being. Using science, design, and professional expertise, I'll help you shape a space that elevates your mindset and enhances your well-being. Let's create space for better living, starting now. If your child's bedroom feels stylistically chaotic, full of color, clutter, or pieces that just don't work together, you're not alone. What if I told you that calm, creativity, and independence can all be designed into the room itself? Around the world, cultures design children's bedrooms very differently. And those differences reveal powerful insights about how our environment shapes behavior, rest, and emotional growth. In today's episode, we'll explore what Denmark, Japan, and Germany get right, and how to bring their best ideas home. How a rug and a Roman shade can ground the nervous system, how balanced lighting builds better sleep, how independence can be taught through furniture height, and why the 70-30 rule keeps energy and calm in perfect balance. You'll walk away with clear, high-level design principles you can apply today, blending global design wisdom with neurodesign insights for real, measurable calm. Welcome to Your Home by Design, a Paro podcast hosted by me, Nico. Here we explore how design and neuroscience shape the way we live and how your home can become a tool for better living. So today's episode is all about children's bedrooms, and it is the last episode of our Home by Country series, which I have enjoyed so much. So let's get into it. Children's bedrooms do more than hold toys and beds. They quietly teach rhythm, focus, and independence. In Denmark, calm and longevity are built into every design choice. Furniture that grows with the child, spaces that teach self-reliance. In Japan, flexibility is the ultimate form of order. Spaces shift throughout the day, gently cueing the mind to move from rest to play, to focus. And in Germany, precision brings peace. Rooms are planned with clarity, giving the brain predictable cues that lower stress and invite calm focus. What ties these cultures together and what we believe deeply at Paro is that the way you design your home shapes the way you live. So today we'll look at how to do it, how to ground a room so it feels calm, how to layer light to match your child's energy, how to design independence through smart storage, and how to protect the room's purpose so it truly restores the body and brain. Because every design decision, teaches a way of living. So let's start in Denmark, the birthplace of calm design and a culture that really views home as the foundation of well-being. Danish interiors are known for their simplicity. I mean, you can picture the vibe of a Danish interior. They're light, they're bright, they're airy. But when you look closer, especially at children's rooms, that level of simplicity isn't about minimalism for its own sake. Like it's not about removing the excess of stuff. That's not really the purpose. Although when you look at Danish rooms, they do look sort of minimalistic in some regards. But it would seem that parents really design with the belief that calm surroundings calm their children. And I think it's just true in how you see their aesthetic come together. And that space, they understand that the spaces we grow up in quietly teach us how to move through the world. You see it in the way they choose natural wood furniture that really ages beautifully. It's not just to last, that's one aspect of it, but it ages beautifully. And you see it in the way storage is placed at a child's height, which just encourages that sense of independence because they don't have to rely on an adult to help them get to their things. One of my favorite design principles from Denmark is the idea of designing for growth. So choosing pieces of furniture that are going to stand the test of time, and then really personalizing the space in a way that can adapt and change as they grow. So they start with more or less a neutral base. That you'll see light walls when we talk about airy and bright and open. You probably pictured bright light walls. They have solid furniture with warm woods and natural light. Then they just layer in the personality through details that can change. So they'll layer in different bedding, art. The art is colorful and fun. And I think that that's really nice because it's a beautiful contrast to that very white and light aesthetic. And then there's the layering of light and then the texture. And the goal really isn't to create a perfect room. It's to build a space that can adapt to really who they're becoming. So again, it's those key pieces. So bed, table, dresser, wardrobe, the things that they can stand the test of time. The other Danish takeaway I love is to create independence through design. In many Danish homes, you'll see open shelving that is accessible to the kids. They can reach it. There's hooks at eye level and drawers that they can get to on their own. And these design choices aren't just about aesthetics. It's really about building this level of confidence and independence in the kids. And independence usually starts visually, right? With kids. When children can see where things belong, they kind of begin to carve out their own world, and they have a sense of liberty in a space. When my kids were really little, my daughter, I had, an adult type closet organizer for her, and she couldn't access any of her own clothes. Even her dresser at the time was quite tall, so she couldn't reach the top drawer. So if I was trying to encourage independence in her, it would be more challenging because I would always have to be there getting her clothes out for her and giving them to her. Whereas when my son was born, I decided to kind of adapt a little bit more of that Montessori feel, where I kept the adult closet, like the hanging heights and all of those things, but I only put things out of reach that he didn't need to have access to. So clothes he wasn't wearing every day and that sort of thing. Whereas the stuff that he needed to get to, I put in bins. So he was able to go to his closet and get everything he needed to get dressed for the day or get changed, get ready for bed. And I could tell that gave him a sense of independence. Even if there were times where I would send him, to get dressed, and I would come to his room and the bins were emptied upside down and it was a mess and all of those things. I mean, there was challenges in that way for sure, but more or less he was able to get to things, and then he was able to choose what he wanted to wear and just do it at his own pace. And so I definitely saw a difference there in just how they were able to be independent. And I think that that's, the heart of Danish design philosophy is that design can shape behavior in really beautiful ways. So while Denmark teaches us the beauty of calm simplicity and spaces built to evolve, Japan shows us the power of flexibility. So in Japanese homes, rooms shift throughout the day, which helps the mind reset with each transition. In Japan, children's bedrooms are designed really around being adaptable and this sort of respect for this transition. So where Danish rooms kind of evolve slowly over time, a Japanese room really evolves through the day. Many kids still sleep on futons that are folded and stored away each morning, which just instantly transforms the same room into another activity. So whether they're transitioning from sleep to study or sleep to play, and this simple act of like putting the bed away becomes more than just like a daily routine or even a little chore. It's actually a physical cue for the brain that, one activity is over and another activity is beginning. So it's this sort of design rhythm that teaches something really profound. It teaches this sense of purpose and it teaches a sense of focus, right? You can imagine for a child, if they put their bed away and then they bring out their toys, it is now time to play. When they put their toys away and then they bring out a desk, or like a portable table, it's now time to study. So the room is really focused and the activity matches what's in front of them, which I think is really interesting. And yeah, you can see that in the layers of the rooms. The walls are really uncluttered. There's rarely anything on the walls. You don't see shelving mounted to the walls very often. And the colors are very few. So there's really low visual complexity in a room. I think in a sense, it's a very tactile, very calming vibe. Japanese homes embody that like principle just naturally. They teach the body really how to downshift and to shift from one activity to the next. There's this sense of like material authenticity, right? It's consistent throughout the home. So you'll find like wood, tatami, paper screens, linen, and yeah, the textures are really connected to nature, and the sense of the tatami mats is an experience as well. And these natural materials, they sort of invite touch, right? And then they help with sound. And even in Japan, they'll balance like humidity in the air. So even within a single room, you'll notice a clear separation between rest and activity. A folded futon is put away, a panel that slides open. Kids' bedrooms even have a light switch. And this isn't just in kids' bedrooms. This is in a lot of bedrooms. They'll have their overhead lighting, their ceiling fixture, can be controlled. So there's a lot of different options that you can have. And one of them is it's like an orange light. So they will put it on at night or in the evening, which I think it's such a beautiful thing that they incorporate, because it just, again, it signals to the body and the brain that now this space is transitioning into a space to unwind and then to go to sleep. So just having an orange light in a room at night is going to signal it's time to rest, it's time to calm. And that physical change, that cue, helps the mind shift, which encourages deep rest. For children, these rooms really teach adaptability because the room has to change, mindfulness, and just a sense of quiet kind of independence. And as a designer, I think there's something powerful to take away here, because when we create spaces that can change with the rhythm of the day or the rhythm of life, we get to teach our kids about having and creating a healthy lifestyle, which is like organization and tidiness. When you have to switch tasks and before you can move on to the next thing, you have to put away whatever it is you're doing. So for them, it's the bed or the toys and it also teaches awareness and focus on the activity at hand. And from a Paro perspective, we believe in room rules and really designating spaces and then honoring those designations. And Japan does this really well with cues. A room can start as a place to sleep, and then it can become a place to learn. It can become a place to play. And then at the end of the day, it returns back as a place to sleep. And that's kind of the art of transition. It can become a really powerful tool for better living. In Japan, homes teach us that art of flexibility, whereas in Germany, design reminds us of the power of structure. It's less about minimalism and more about intentionality and knowing that when everything has a place, the mind can rest. So in Germany, precision brings peace. It's not the kind of precision that feels really rigid. It's thoughtful and very functional. I think German values in design are function forward. They value clarity, craftsmanship, and purpose. Germany is one of the world's largest producers of design-oriented goods. So they know a thing or two about being intentional about design values. And that intentionality shows up really beautifully in how children's rooms are designed. These spaces are organized, but never sterile. You'll see built-in cabinetry or wardrobes that fit really well into the space, shelves that align neatly, and furniture that feels solid. One of the most defining features, I would say, of children's rooms is their zoning. There's often children's rooms can be larger because in Germany, there isn't often another room in the house where it's a playroom or another area where toys and things are kept. So often everything is kept in a child's room, but there's a really clear sense of where each activity belongs. So there's a space for sleep. So the bed area, and the beds are typically smaller, single beds. In North America, we're used to doubles or even queens in kids' bedrooms. And but yeah, and then they have like a corner for study. So they'll have either a desk if the child is older or a little table with chairs, like a little play table in one of the corners. So it's a defined area for play. Even in smaller rooms, there's these sort of visual boundaries that really help the brain distinguish between focus and play and rest and creativity. But I do wonder if kids are expected to keep their room really clean and organized, because Germans are typically orderly and efficient. So I'd be curious to know if that was something that was really fundamental in that, because that would be really important, I think, for a room that does serve multiple functions, is that sense of making sure that when it is bedtime, that the toys aren't all left out and kind of, enticing the kids to come back and play. So I'd be curious to know, and I imagine that that is the case. But neuroaesthetically, this matters more than we realize, because the brain loves predictability. And when it can anticipate what a space is used for, it just lessens the cognitive load. And then that sense of order just allows the bedroom to feel more calm and for the child to feel calm in the space. And I think that making sure that if it's a multifunctional space, that those areas that are designated for various things like play, that it is put away or it is hidden in some regards when it does have to shift to time to sleep. But another signature of German interiors is the quality of materials. There's really an emphasis on longevity, things like proper joinery and fixtures that are made to last. And that craftsmanship sends a subtle but impactful message to a child, right? Like things are meant to be cared for and not replaced. And personally, as a designer, I've found this to be true, because if I'm ever specifying something that's German made, something like hardware or lighting, you always get a sense of that precision. You really feel like it's built with care and that there's a level of trust in the quality that you're getting. And I just think that that's true with most products that do come out of Germany. German craftsmanship carries a kind of integrity that you can feel in the details. Like it's not just about aesthetics, it's about respect for the craft. And I think for the people who use it, but there's this real sense of pride in quality. And I think Germans prize independence. It's about giving children a sense of control within an environment that feels really trustworthy. If you're designing a child's room, this is where kind of structure and freedom meet. So, creating systems that are clear, but not really confined, like giving every item a home and a place it returns at the end of the day. Because when children grow up in spaces where things make sense and it's easy to kind of reset the room, they learn that the world around them can too. And I think that it instills great habits, it forms character, and they have that sense of liberty in their space when they're the ones that are putting things away. Great design is not just about how a room looks, it's about how it teaches them to live. So when we design children's rooms, our kids' rooms, and I'm not just talking about, little kids, this can be at any age. We're not just choosing furniture, we're architecting daily behaviors. And this can evolve, this can change. If you feel like perhaps you haven't done such a good job on this, I know for myself, there's times where I'm like, I really need to get my kids to get on board with how their spaces are functioning. And I really need them to take liberty on some things. So I'll sit down with, say, my daughter, and I'll ask her, like, we need to find new homes for things. Maybe she's had a birthday and she's gotten some more toys, and now we have to find homes for them. So it causes us to evaluate what she already has in her room, the storage, where things are going, and what can we take away? What can we add? How can we reorganize? And then she can weigh in on how that functions. Now, of course, there's times where she's like, well, this and this and this and this and this can all live on this shelf. And the shelf that she wants it on is a little bit higher. And I know that for her to get to it, put it back and take it away is not going to be efficient, and it's not going to happen. So of course, then it's this discussion, and I have to, well, it's better if we move it to this area or that area. But this is an ongoing thing. And I only want to say this because it's important to recognize it doesn't have to start just when your kids are little. It's okay to say, you know what, we're going to start implementing some things now. Because whether that's learning to make the bed, to study with focus, to really designate the room roles, or, to rest. Maybe you've got no devices in the bedroom, you're designating the space. The design either can help or it can hinder what you'd like to see. So if you're wondering where to start, here's how. I am going to share 8 design principles that kind of take everything we've just talked about, and I've put them into simple, high impact changes that you can make right now. So the first one is to ground the space. Calm starts underfoot. So this is inspired by Denmark's tactile simplicity. So a rug, a soft window treatment, they do more than just decorate, they regulate. Okay, so how can you do this? You choose a natural fiber rug, large enough for both feet to land when stepping out of bed. And you can add linen or cotton to your shades. You do a Roman shade, which just diffuses the light. It doesn't block the light completely. It just adds this diffusion to it. And why to do this? Well, texture anchors the body and reduces sensory tension. So when a room feels grounded, your child will feel grounded as well. Number 2 is to design for growth. Build the foundation once. So this is rooted in Danish longevity and German practicality. So how is you want to invest in timeless pieces like a solid wood bed, neutral walls, and modular storage that can shift from toys to books or decorative items as the kids get older. And then you just want to refresh through easy layering. So, bed, changing up the bedding as they age, changing out the art, the lighting, these are all things that can grow with the child, and you can switch them out and change up the space in those ways as you need to as they get older. And why to do this? Well, stability gives children comfort, and adaptability fuels curiosity, right? It's a nice thing to feel that your room can adapt to how you need. So you're creating a room that really evolves with them and not one that they outgrow altogether. I think that that's an important consideration when you're looking to buy certain pieces of furniture. You can actually say you're willing to invest a little bit more for a better quality that is going to grow with them. And then just like I said, change up the things that are a little bit easier to change, and the things that as their tastes evolve and they want to personalize the space more, you're able to do that, and they have a little bit more creative freedom in that way. Number 3 is to simplify the floor line. So you want to kind of let the room breathe. So this is inspired more by Japanese kind of visual balance and simplicity. So how to do this is you want to lift the heavy pieces. So use things like wall-mounted shelves, floating nightstands, and furniture with legs, which just expose more of the floor. When you can see the floor, it creates openness in the room. It's a sense of openness, and you want to keep toy bins contained in one zone, not spread out across the perimeter. And why is this? Well, open floor space creates visual calm, right? So the brain interprets visual sort of pathways as order and control. You also get a sense that you can move in the space easily. And when you're able to move through a room without any contention, that's really important. It allows our brains to be able to focus, to rest, and to relax. And number 4 is to layer the light. So match the light to the energy needed in the room. So if you need to have a relaxed vibe, you don't need a high energy space. You don't need to have a lot of focus. You don't need to have a lot of alertness. If you're going to study, you're going to tailor the lighting to match that. And how you do it is, well, you use 3 sources: a soft overhead light, so a ceiling fixture, a bedside or desk lamp, and one low warm light for evenings. So I love to say, the overhead lighting, if my kids are playing in their room, I like having an overhead ceiling fixture that's a little bit brighter. It keeps them alert. They've got more energy. Whereas at night, I will turn off the overhead, and we've got a bedside lamp that's not too bright. We also have a little clock that glows orange, kind of warm light at night. So I make sure that that's on. No white light, because white light can disrupt the circadian rhythm. And you want to position the bed too, if, consider it as a way to catch the morning sun, right? And those are the things that when you open the curtains and the sun comes in, if it's filtered a little bit, or if it's just dappling on the bed, that's a nice way for a child to wake up. So, and then the opposite of that is making sure you're closing the curtains at dusk, and it's a dark space for the kids to really signal that wind down. And I love how in Japan, like I said, they have those ceiling fixtures that actually give them the option to use an orange light at night to represent dusk and the sunset, and just giving their body the cue that it's time to start to wind down. And why is this? Well, light drives energy and sleep patterns. So balanced lighting really teaches that sense of rhythm. It's not just ambiance. And if you've listened to my other episodes, you've probably heard me talking about spectrally optimized lighting, and that if you want to really be able to impact the circadian rhythms, then you can actually get bulbs that are spectrally optimized, which mean that the wavelengths in the bulb affect our circadian rhythms. Just having an orange light, it's not actually going to affect your circadian rhythms. It will help you to relax, and it does give your body the cues that it needs to wind down, but it's not actually going to have those circadian rhythm effects. Number 5 is to create independence. So let design teach routine. So this is inspired by Danish parenting through design. So how you want to add hooks and drawers at child height. Use open bins. I shared my story of my son using open bins and just that sense of independence that it gave him. So you want the bins to be things that they can actually see into, and consider labeling them or color coding them if they're not able to read yet. And why? Well, when a room makes sense to a child visually, they get to act independently without being told. They get that sense of independence and freedom, and the environment can kind of aid and become a bit of a teacher. And number 6 is balance energy and calm, right? So like the 70-30 rule, and this is inspired by the like Japanese restraint and then also German precision. So how do you do this? Well, you keep about 70% of the room, say, really calm. So muted tones, consistent textures, you're almost repeating colors. So if you choose, say, one color, you can choose different tones of that color, so different intensities of that color to make up that 70%. You can keep it interesting by changing up the tone intensity, but choosing things like muted tones and consistent textures. And then you reserve that 30% for things that are a little bit more expressive, art and accessories, and, even little toss cushions, or if you've got a chair, a fun area rug, like those are the kind of things that you can include in that 30%. And also those are the things that you can change up, like we've talked about, as they get older. And why is this? Well, the brain needs both predictability and stimulation, right? So in this ratio kind of keeps it feeling a little bit more of a creative space, but it doesn't feel visually chaotic. So I think that that's a really nice line to draw in a bedroom when you do use this space as a space to sleep, but you also, especially being that it's a kid's room, they're going to use that room as a space to either study if they're older, hang out with friends, get creative, play. And so that's really important to be able to differentiate between those activities. And number 7 is to frame belonging. And so, display their world, right? So, and this is kind of comes from a bit of like Danish pride and then Japanese respect for craft. So how you do this, and I love this one because to frame one or two of their very own artworks or even a photo of themselves, so you use real frames, make it feel intentional. I love the use of like antique frames with playful, fun, hand-drawn kids art. Like that's just a beautiful contrast. And so you can really switch it up as much as you want or as little as you want. And as they get older, maybe they can appreciate different art. So maybe it's a poster that they've collected, or they came across a really cool photograph. And so you have it printed and frame it for them. So it just gives them that sense of pride in their own space, and it really reflects who they are. And then you get to kind of change it up as they grow. And why is this good? Well, personal visibility builds identity and confidence, right? Seeing their own creativity really gives them that sense of pride and ownership of their environment. They're carving out a space that speaks to who they are. It mirrors back their interests and their life and the things that they're proud of. So, and number 8 is to protect the role of the room. So design it for rest and for ritual. And this is inspired by Japan's respect for function and Germany's respect for order. So, and how is to define the bedroom's purpose, right? So I'm a big believer in keeping technology out of bedrooms. So, keeping tech out, especially when kids are about to go to sleep, we know that blue light can disrupt the circadian rhythms, and to limit things like storage overflow and create one consistent kind of bedtime cue. Like I talked about, I don't put the overhead lights on in the room at night. We have some soft lighting that we have. We do have music playing as well. And this is just that cue to wind down. So you're really respecting that role of the room. And again, if that room is more of a multifunctional place, how are you transitioning from one activity to the next? Are you making sure that, like in Japan, the bed is put away before the study stuff comes out, or, vice versa? In Germany, are you, even though there's designated areas in the room, are you really making sure that as the child is getting into bed at night, that they're not able to see and visually interact with play, things that is going to start to stimulate them and get their mind going? So it's really important for that predictability. So why is this? Well, the body learns through repetition, right? And predictable environments tell our bodies and our brains what we're doing. So we are here, we now rest. And we've we've got all the visual cues in order to do that well. So that was 8. I hope that you got the value there and that you feel inspired and motivated to tweak some things in your kids' space. Across cultures, the message is clear. Simplicity, rhythm, and belonging matter. So when you ground a space, layer light with purpose and intention, and protect the calm, you're doing more than just designing a room. You're shaping how your child feels, focuses, and grows. So start small. You can do just one rug or one frame, one new ritual. Design it with intention, and you'll start to feel the shift, not just in the room, but in how your child and your family lives. Your home has the power to change the way you live. Discover how at yourparo.com. That's yourparo.com. You'll find free guides, blog insights, and my full podcast archive. And don't forget to sign up for the Create Space digital course waitlist to start designing a home that truly supports you. Thank you for listening, and I will catch you next episode. Your home has the power to change the way you live. Discover how at yourparo.com. That's yourparo.com. You'll find free guides, blog insights, and my full podcast archive. And don't forget to sign up for the Create Space digital course waitlist to start designing a home that truly supports you. Thank you for listening to today's episode, and I will catch you in the next episode. Thanks so much for listening today. If you found this episode helpful, the best way to support the show is to follow along and share it with someone who'd love it too. And if you'd like to go a step further, you can become one of our Better Living backers. It's a small monthly contribution that helps keep the show going. And as a thank you, I'll send you a personal note along with a 15% discount for the Create Space course when it launches. You can find the support the show link right in the show notes. I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for creating space with me.